Level 1. The Peasant. The barber comes at dawn. You sit on a low stool at the edge of the village market. He takes the blade to the front of your head, not to your hair, to your skin. The skin of your forehead, scraped clean. You have been doing this since you were old enough to understand what happens to men who don't. The braid at the back of your head, long, tight, oiled, hangs down between your shoulder blades. Every 10 days you return to this stool. You do not think of it as submission. You think of it the way you think of sunrise. It is simply the shape of the world. You live in a village outside the county seat in Jiangxi province, circa Mutnyin Baicham Tammui. There are 400 million people in this empire. You do not know that number. You know the number of mu of land your family works. You know the weight of the tax collector's scale. You know how many months until the next harvest. The Qing dynasty has been in power for 130 years. In Beijing, a man called the Son of Heaven rules all of this. You have never seen Beijing. You have heard of it the way you have heard of heaven, a real place that has nothing to do with your life. The grain tax is collected twice a year, spring and autumn. The amount is calibrated locally by the magistrate's office. The calibration tends to go in one direction. You have heard of years when it went the other way. You have not lived through one. You do not own the land. You work it for rent paid in grain, in labor, in days of your life you do not get back. When the harvest is bad, the calculation is simple and terrible. You borrow. The interest is not small. The next harvest is mortgaged before it exists. Your queue is braided by your wife each morning. She does it quickly, with the efficiency of a thing that must be done. You do not think of it as a symbol. You think of it as your hair. It is not your hair. It is the empire's hair, worn on your head as proof that you have accepted the arrangement. In 130 years before you were born, men who refused to shave were given 10 days. One man arrested in the south of China was asked if he would comply. He said, "To cut off my head is a small matter. To shave my head is a great matter." He was beheaded. You have never heard that story. You don't need to. The blade on the back of every man's neck is the story. The tax collector will be here in 3 weeks. You already know what you will give him. You already know it will not be enough. You will make up the difference somehow. Your father made up the difference somehow. His father did too. That is the arrangement. You did not choose it. You were born into it. The empire was built on the assumption that you will accept it. So far, the assumption has been correct. But there is one man who collects what you owe, and he is, by the law of this empire, below you. Level 2. The Artisan. The bowl takes 3 weeks. You work in a kiln workshop attached to 12 other kiln workshops in a town that makes nothing but porcelain. The town has made nothing but porcelain for 4 generations. Your grandfather made porcelain. Your father made porcelain. Your son, who is 7, already knows how to wedge clay. In the official ordering of things, the ordering that Confucian scholars have maintained for 1,000 years, you are above the merchant. You produce something. You work with your hands and your skill to turn raw material into objects. This is considered more virtuous than buying low and selling high. In practice, the merchant is richer than you, substantially richer. But the ranking is not about wealth. It is about moral worth, as defined by men who have never fired a kiln. This bowl is going to the palace, not the county magistrate's office. The Imperial Palace in Beijing. The blue and white pattern on the side is a design specified in a document sent from the Board of Works. The specifications cover the diameter, the glaze formula, the exact shade of cobalt. There is no room for interpretation. You do not know who will use it. You do not know if it will be used at all, or stored in a warehouse alongside 10,000 others like it. You cannot own one. Not only because they are expensive, though they are, but because the category of person who uses this bowl is not the category of person you are. The category was fixed before you were born. You cannot take the Imperial examinations. Or rather, technically, you could. There is no written law that says your hands bar you from the examination hall. But there is the cost of preparation. Years of study, a private tutor, classical texts you cannot read because you were not taught to read them. You learned to work clay from your father. Your father did not teach you classical Chinese. Your son will learn to work clay. The bowl your son fires will go somewhere you will never go. Your cue gets in the way when you lean over the wheel. You tuck it into your collar. The same braid, the same 10 days, whether you make porcelain or plow fields or count coins. The empire does not distinguish. Only the law does. And the law says, what you make is not yours. Above you stands the man the Confucian scholars say is beneath you. He is wealthier than you will ever be. You will understand why when you see what he is wearing. Level 3. The Merchant. The warehouse smells like tea and wood and the sea. It is dark except for 2 oil lamps on either side of the counting table. You sit at the table. In front of you, columns of numbers. Behind you, bales of silk stacked to the ceiling. You are wearing rough cotton. This is not poverty. This is the law. The silk behind you is yours to move, to sell, to ship across the ocean to men in London and Boston and Amsterdam. The silk behind you has made you the wealthiest man in the world. And you are not permitted to wear it. Your name is Haukwa. It is Motnin Damjam Bamito. Your fortune stands at $26 million, more than most kings of Europe. You are the leader of the Kohong, the guild of 13 licensed merchants authorized by the Qing court to conduct all trade with the Western powers. Every bolt of silk, every pound of tea, every piece of porcelain that leaves China for the West passes through your hands, or the hands of the 12 men who answer to you. Western traders owe you money. American millionaires carry your letters of credit. You have lent to men whose grandchildren will still be repaying you. By law, you are Shangren, merchant class, the lowest of the 4 good people in the Confucian ordering, below farmers, below artisans, below scholars who have never built anything in their lives. You may not wear silk. You may not ride in an official sedan chair. You may not hold government office or sit for government examinations. You may acquire titles if you pay enough, in the right way, to the right officials. They are decorative. Everyone knows it. You know it best of all. Since Minbai Cham Namibai, a decree from the Qianlong Emperor has locked all Western trade through this port, Canton, and through these 13 merchants. There is no other entry point, no other dealers. The decree that made you indispensable also made you controllable. The officials know this. When they need money, they come to you, not to borrow, to extract. The word used is contributions. The amount is not negotiable. You pay. You add the cost to the margin on the next silk shipment. The Westerners pay more. Everyone accepts the arrangement. You count the columns again. The numbers are right. The numbers are always right. You are very good at numbers. Outside, men are loading ships. The silk comes off the bales, gets wrapped in oilskin, gets carried down to the dock. In 3 months it will be in England, dyed and cut and worn by women at court. You set down your brush. You look at the silk behind you. You pick up the brush again. The law has been the law since before you were born. You were born a merchant's son, which made you a merchant. This is not a cage you walked into. It is the shape of the room you were given. But even the richest merchant answers to men with documents. Level 4. The Yamen Runner. You knock on the door at dawn. You don't have to knock hard. The farmer inside has been listening for you. The door opens. He looks at you. You look at him. Neither of you speak. He goes back inside. You wait. He comes out with a sack. You weigh it on the scale you carry. It is not enough. You both know it. You write a number in your ledger. He goes back inside for more. You are a Yamen runner, Chai, a functionary of the county magistrate's office. You collect taxes, serve documents, carry messages, and enforce orders. You are the face of the government that most people in this empire will ever see. You are not part of the 4 good classes. By Qing law, you are Jian Min, a mean person. Below farmer, artisan, and merchant, below the men you collect from. You are lower, in the official accounting, than the man whose door you just knocked on. You cannot sit for the Imperial examinations. Neither can your children, or your grandchildren. The prohibition runs 3 generations. Your great-grandchildren will be the first who might, if they have the money and the time and the instruction, sit in an examination hall and compete for the right to be what you are not. The magistrate pays you almost nothing. This is not an oversight. The salary of a Yamen runner is calibrated to be insufficient by design. The understanding, unwritten, universally acknowledged, is that you will make up the difference from the men you deal with. The farmer will pay you again next season. Not in grain, in something smaller. Something that keeps you from returning with a more official version of the document you're already carrying. This is not corruption in the way that word is sometimes used. This is the mechanism. The system runs on it. The magistrate who employs you is a Jinshi graduate, a man who spent decades studying classical texts to earn his position. He sits behind a lacquered desk and reads memorials. You do not read. You carry things. You knock on doors before dawn. He gives you orders. You give the farmer bad news. The farmer has no one below him to pass the news to, which is the only thing that places him above you in the order of things. Your queue is the same as every other man's. Shaved front, braid in back. At the magistrate's office, you wear a uniform. Cheap, plain, identifying. When you knock on farmhouse doors at dawn, people know what you are before they open the door. The braid marks you as a man of this empire. The uniform marks you as a man of this office. Neither marks you as a man of consequence. You answer to the man who wears the banner, and that man is beginning to have problems of his own. Level 5. The Bannerman. The rickshaw is not heavy when it's empty. You know this because you have been pulling it for 3 years since the stipend became impossible to live on. The uniform is still in your room, folded in a chest. You put it on once for a festival. Then you folded it again. Your grandfather commanded 50 men. Your father managed a garrison on the northern frontier. You pull a rickshaw in Beijing because the calculation changed, and no one warned you it would. The 8 banners were the military social system that built this dynasty. Your ancestors' Manchu cavalry were the force that overthrew the Ming in 600 Bontibor and handed China to the Qing court. As a Bannerman, you were born into a hereditary class above the examination system. You did not need to study. You did not need to compete. The throne owed you a monthly stipend, a garrison post, a place in the order of things that could not be taken from you by a failed examination. 3 to 5 taels of silver per month. In 600 born, this was sufficient. It was, in fact, comfortable. In 600 born, there were perhaps 1 million bannermen and their dependents. By the 19th century, the number had grown substantially. The stipend pool had not. Inflation had. Stanford University Press, in its study of Qing social stratification, records how contemporaries described the Bannerman community's slide into what they called, in the language of the era, drinking and impoverished parasites living off the court. This is not a description designed to be kind. It is, by the records, accurate. According to research published in the University of Michigan's Journal of Manchu Studies, substance abuse among Bannermen in the 19th century was documented in the language primers the Bannermen themselves produced, the textbooks they used to maintain their own ethnic identity. The problem was not concealed. It was articulated in official texts. The system knew it had broken something it could not fix. Your braid still hangs at your back. Tight, oiled, carefully maintained. Of the things your family lost. The garrison commands, the frontier postings, the stipend that once meant something. The braid is what remains. It is the one visible fact of what your grandfather was. You keep it the same way your grandfather kept it. Every 10 days, the shave. Every morning, the oil. You pass the red walls of the Forbidden City on your route. Inside those walls, the empire continues as it always has. Out here, in the streets, the bannermen of Beijing pull strangers from one end of the city to the other for coins. In 10 years, there will be a rebellion. The bannermen will be called back into service. They will perform badly. 8 foreign armies will march into Beijing. The dynasty will pay an indemnity larger than its annual revenue. Your garrison will exist after that, but its purpose will not. The braid swings with the motion of your running. You have stopped thinking about what it means. Below the barracks, a different kind of man rises. He did not inherit his place. He earned it with decades of study and very little certainty that it would be enough. Level 6. The Scholar-Gentry. The oil lamp burns low. It is past midnight. The examination is in 3 weeks. You have been studying for 11 years. The text in front of you is a commentary on the 4 books, the foundational Confucian texts you have memorized, analyzed, cross-referenced with 63 other commentaries, and written about in the formal 8-legged essay style required by the examination board. You can write an 8-legged essay in your sleep. You have done it in your sleep. You have woken and written down what you were composing while unconscious. You are a Shengyuan, a licentiate. You passed the district examination 10 years ago. This placed you in the lowest rung of the Scholar-Gentry, exempt from corporal punishment, exempt from certain taxes, possessed of local prestige. In your home village, men defer to you. The magistrate receives you in the front hall instead of making you wait at the door. Since the district examination, you have sat for the provincial examination 3 times. Failed 3 times. Research published through Duke University Press documents a shift that explains your difficulty precisely. In the early Ming dynasty, more than 83% of newly awarded provincial graduates came from rural areas. By the late 19th century, that number had fallen to approximately 1%. The provincial examination had become a competition won overwhelmingly by men from cities. men with access to private academies, men whose fathers had already passed, who owned the right commentaries, who could afford the right teachers. You are from a farming village. Your father was a Shengyuan too. For 24 years, until he died without advancing. Duke University Press research on the examination system found that low-level scholars appeared to be, in the researchers' words, trapped in poverty, neither able to advance without financial resources they lacked, nor able to step back from the path that had consumed their lives. You understand this precisely. You cannot stop. You passed the first examination, which means you are committed. To stop now is to have wasted a decade for nothing. To continue is to wager another decade on odds that are not in your favor. In examination years, men in their 60s and 70s still arrive to sit the district test. The lowest rung. Still trying, after 40 or 50 years, to pass the first step. You are 34. You tell yourself you are not one of those men. It is past midnight. Your wife has been asleep for 2 hours. She married you because of what you were supposed to become. She does not say this. You both understand it. You pick up your brush. You write. The provincial exam is harder. The national exam harder still. Most men stop here. A few do not. Level 7. The Imperial Official. The petition arrived from a county 300 miles away. It describes a drought. It requests a tax reduction for the affected households. It has been stamped by the county magistrate, endorsed by the prefect, and has now reached your desk in the provincial governor's office. You read it. You stamp it. You forward it to the Board of Revenue in Beijing. You do not know the name of the county. You do not need to. The document contains everything required. The stamp says what it needs to say. You are a jinsha, a graduate of the highest national examination. The pass rate for the jinsha examination is approximately 1 to 2%. The exam is held in Beijing, in the great examination halls, and lasts 3 days and 3 nights. You write in an isolation cell the size of a closet. You bring your own food. You do not speak to anyone. You passed at 31. Your mother burned incense for a week. The crane on your robe identifies your rank. Civil officials wear birds. Military officials wear animals. Rank 1 civil service. The crane. The jade button on your cap confirms your exact position within that tier. Every official in the empire can be read like a text. The embroidery tells the rank tells the power tells what the man is owed, and what he owes. You are Han Chinese. Your ancestors preceded this dynasty by 3,000 years of recorded history. You have spent 30 years studying the texts of your own civilization, passed the examination system your own civilization designed, and now administer the laws of the dynasty that conquered it. This contradiction does not occur to you daily. When it does, you set it aside quickly. The examination system offers no alternative framing. You passed. That is what matters. One wrong memorial, one petition mishandled, one policy incorrectly interpreted, one superior offended through careless phrasing, and the rank becomes a liability rather than a protection. Officials have been stripped of rank and exiled for less. Some have been executed. You write carefully. You say what must be said in the way it must be said. The 8-legged essay form is not only an examination format, it is a template for thought. You were trained to think in it. You still do. You stamp the drought petition. You write 2 lines of endorsement. You hand it to the clerk. The clerk adds it to a stack. The stack goes to Beijing in the next courier bag. Whether the tax reduction is approved, you will not know for 6 months. By then, you will have forgotten this county. Above the official, there are 2 final layers. One wears a banner by right of blood, the other rules from behind a curtain. Level 8. The Manchu Noble. You have never sat for an examination. You were not required to. Your grandfather's grandfather rode with Nurhaci, the man who unified the Manchu clans and launched the conquest that delivered China to the Qing court. That history is why you hold what you hold. You were not required to justify it. It was given before you were born. You command the garrison in Beijing, one of several stationed around the capital, manned by Bannerman, whose function is to defend the dynasty that created them. The 8-banner system was designed to keep military aristocracy and civilian bureaucracy permanently separate. The Han scholars, however capable, however loyal, could never hold direct command of the military apparatus. That domain belonged to the Manchu nobility. Inherited, not earned. The crane-robed official in the provincial governor's office below you studied for 30 years to reach his position. You were born into yours. It is Motnin Tam Tram Tam Mui. The First Opium War ended 40 years ago, with humiliation. The Taiping Rebellion ended 16 years ago, with 20 million dead. Your garrison has not seen real combat in a generation. The bannermen under your command are trained, in theory. In practice, they have been the same men performing the same drills for years, receiving stipends that have not grown, in a city that has changed significantly around them. The weapons are not current. The tactics are not current. The dynasty has been slow to acknowledge this, because acknowledging it would require acknowledging how much has changed since Sautram Born Me Born. In 20 years, a movement called the Society of Righteous and Harmonious Fists will rise against foreign influence in China. The Empress Dowager will briefly support them. The Bannerman will be deployed. The result will be 8 foreign armies marching into Beijing. The Bannerman will sustain casualties and prevent nothing. The dynasty will pay an indemnity equal to more than 4 times its annual revenue. Your garrison will exist after that, but what it is meant to defend will not be the same thing. You were born above the meritocracy. The meritocracy, for all its limits, produces men who have proved something, who sat in the closet for 3 days and came out with a result. You were born into your position. You cannot be removed from it. You cannot make it mean what it once meant. The crane-robed official below you has a job that matters. He processes documents that move things. You command a garrison that defends against threats that have already bypassed it without needing to face it directly. But even the general does not sit on the throne. The throne holds a child. And the child is governed by a woman no official document will ever name as ruler. Level 9. The Empress Dowager. The screen is silk. Behind it, you sit on a platform slightly elevated above the floor. On the other side of the silk, your son sits on the dragon throne. A minister is speaking. He is reporting on a military situation in the south. He is addressing the emperor. You listen. When he finishes, you tell your son what to say. Your son repeats it. The minister writes it down as an imperial edict. You are Tzu-Chi. You have been governing the empire since your husband, the Xianfeng emperor, died and left a child on the throne, and a court full of men who assumed a widow would retire to grieve. They were incorrect. You governed through your son, the Tongzhi emperor. He died in Baitinbum-Lef. You governed through your nephew, the Guangzhou emperor, who came to the throne at age 4. 47 years. 2 emperors. Neither one ultimately able to rule without your consent. The system does not acknowledge this directly. The formal titles, the court rituals, the memorials, all addressed to the emperor. But the emperor, whoever he is, receives his decisions from behind a silk screen. You have never sat on the dragon throne. You sit beside it, behind it, in a position that has no official name because the system was not designed to name it. The ministers know, the generals know, the foreign ambassadors know after enough audiences. The Qing court of the late 19th century is administered by a woman in a system built on the explicit premise that women do not administer things. You make this work by making yourself indispensable so gradually that removing you becomes unthinkable. By the time anyone might try, the court has been operating on your decisions for 2 decades. No one who knows how to run it can imagine running it without you. In 1886, you commissioned the reconstruction of the Summer Palace outside Beijing. The project will cost 30 million taels of silver over 9 years. Some of this money comes from funds designated for the modernization of the Northern Fleet, the naval force meant to protect China against foreign powers at sea. In 1894, Japan and China go to war. The Northern Fleet is destroyed. China loses the war. China loses Taiwan. The funds that might have purchased modern warships purchased marble boats and painted corridors. You do not acknowledge a connection between these facts. The court does not press you on it. In 1898, your nephew, the Guangxu Emperor, attempts sweeping reforms. Changes to the examination system, the military, the bureaucracy. 100 days. You end them. The Guangxu Emperor is confined to an island pavilion in the Imperial Gardens. He will remain there for 10 years. He dies in 1898. You die the following day. Historians have disagreed about the circumstances of his death. The record does not resolve this cleanly. What is clear, you chose his successor. A child. On November 11, 1898, you select the 2-year-old son of your nephew's brother to be the next emperor of China. The following day, you die. Your last imperial act was to name a toddler to the throne of the largest empire on earth. And then there is the throne itself, the dragon throne, the son of heaven, the boy who will not stop crying. Level 10. The Emperor. The drums begin at first light. You are 2 years old. You are carried into the hall of supreme harmony in the arms of your father, Prince Chun. The hall is enormous. The drums are very loud. The incense is thick enough to taste. There are men in elaborate robes standing in rows that extend further than you can see. You are placed on the dragon throne. You begin to cry. Your father kneels beside the throne. He cannot pick you up. The ceremony is in progress. The ministers are bowing. The dynasty is being transferred to your body. He leans close and says quietly, "Don't cry. It will be over soon." This comes from Puyi's own account, his autobiography, published in English as From Emperor to Citizen by Oxford University Press. He could not remember it directly. He knew it from the people who were there, that his father said this, at this moment, in this way. This is one of the things the historical record preserved. The drums continued. The ceremony continued. You cried through all of it. You were taken from your parents by palace officials. This was protocol. The emperor does not live with family. He lives in the palace, surrounded by the institution. Your mother visited. The visits were formal. Your primary caregiver was your wet nurse, permitted to travel with you from your father's residence. She was the only person who traveled with you who was not part of the apparatus. You grew up in the Forbidden City. You grew up with hundreds of attendants. You grew up having your clothes chosen by others, your meals selected by others, your food tasted by others before it reached your mouth, your hours arranged by others, your audiences managed by others. Your hair, your queue, was arranged each morning by hands that were not yours. The braid that every man in the empire wore as proof of compliance. The braid the peasant's wife braided before dawn, that the bannerman kept oiled as the last symbol of what his grandfather had been. That the scholar tucked into his collar at the examination desk was worn by the emperor too. Arranged by attendants, braided by attendants, shaved by attendants, every morning of his life, he never once touched his own queue. You are the son of heaven. You hold nominal sovereignty over 400 million people. Every official administers in your name. Every law is your law. Every execution is your execution. Every grain of tax that the peasant pays in autumn and in spring is paid, technically, to you. You cannot leave. The Forbidden City is, in the most literal sense, forbidden. The emperor does not walk outside its walls without a ceremonial procession that takes days to plan. He does not go into a market. He does not sit at a desk and read a petition. He does not choose his food or his clothes or his schedule. His world is bounded by red walls and ceremony and the institution that produced him, and that he now, in name, leads. The peasant in the rice paddy, taxed, nameless, working land that will never belong to him, can at least walk away from his village. He could, if he chose to, simply leave one day and not return. People have always done this. The emperor cannot. Puyi abdicated on February 1912. He was 6 years old. Someone else signed the document. He did not understand what was happening. 2,000 years of Imperial Chinese history ended that day. The dynasty built by conquest, maintained through queue edicts and examination halls and silk screens and 8-banner garrisons, concluded with a 6-year-old boy who did not understand the paper signed in his name. The last emperor of the Qing dynasty was placed on the dragon throne at the age of 2. He could not choose his own clothing, could not leave the walls of the palace, could not speak in the throne hall without the woman behind the curtain telling him what to say. He commanded the lives of 400 million people who would never know his name. And the peasant in the field, the man who shaved his head every 10 days, who paid the grain tax in autumn and in spring, who braided his queue each morning because the alternative was death, who would never once see the red walls of the Forbidden City, could at least walk away. Into the next village, into the next season. Neither of them built the system. Both of them were built by it. The cycle continues. December High, 1912. Drums at dawn. A 2-year-old boy is carried into the largest ceremonial hall on earth and placed on the dragon throne. He begins to cry. His father leans close and whispers, "Don't cry. It will be over soon." The Qing dynasty, China's last empire, 400 million people, 268 years of absolute power, ended in the hands of a child